France and
Available. Record your
Bushra
message at the
and
tone.
Pakistan,
When
and
you are
we
finished, hang up or press
have
pound for more options.
and then we also have Bushra's children listening in, so from various locations. So welcome everyone. So today's session, we will have, some of you have already spoken to Ruth, those who came early, on lost dreams. And so before I introduce Ruth, we just need some housekeeping. I think everybody I can see is muted. When you want to speak, please unmute. And to ask your questions, we will be going for about 60 minutes. We will be breaking at sort of as the slides change, we will stop for questions and answers so that we can have more of a conversation than a presentation. And we will aim to finish around 60 minutes, and then there will be another big Q&A. But we're mindful that many of you have school children and you have homeschooling calls, but we will be online for an hour, 15 minutes or so for conversation. So that's how the morning will go.
Whatever.
So Ruth is actually, by way of introduction, Ruth Van Reken is the co-creator of the language and framework for third culture children, which she developed with David Pollock together. And they gave us this whole language and a framework to understand the experiences of third culture children. And for a lot of us who are actually adults, although we're not kids, but who became third culture adults because naturally as our work, as Padmini mentioned, 7 countries in her adult years, although she, like me, we grew up in our home countries and started traveling only as young adults. So they gave us this language, and Ruth herself actually is no stranger to lost dreams. So often, it's as we walk in those shoes that we talk about, then we become very familiar. They're like old friends. They're very familiar. And she actually discovered lost dreams, and you can find that in her first book, Letters Never Sent. It's autobiographical, but she does talk about those dreams and losses that she experienced from the age of 5. So today she will focus on lost dreams in the age of COVID-19. And I'm sure you will agree that COVID-19 came to us like a thief in the night. And we have all been caught unaware of its impact in our lives. So I will hand over to you, Ruth.
Okay, thank you so much. As I said earlier, it's truly a pleasure to be here. I've really enjoyed association with the World Bank Family Group several times, and it's always been just a highlight of my time in Washington or my year or whatever it is. I come to you today as a fellow pilgrim in this journey that we're all in. And we are in it together. I don't think we've ever experienced, certainly in any of our lifetimes, unless you're really old, sense of corporate loss and corporate sadness that we are experiencing now. And I think that I'm having an echo. Can you hear me? Okay. All right. I'll proceed, and I hope you can hear me. Let me know if you can't. I think that, for most of us, life was going along quite normally, quite happily. We made our plans, we had our plans, and then as Doug Ota, who is the founder of Safe Passages Across Network, a transition program they're developing for certifying schools all over the world to be good, safe passage schools. He talks about how transitions are the great interrupter, that we're going along and all of a sudden we have this huge interruption. Now, often we have time to plan for them and we have time to get ready, but this time, none of us, I don't think, had much time to plan. And so for me, I was, as was mentioned earlier, I was in the process of moving. I thought I would be getting ready for old age where we should be in a condo. We didn't have outside work. We didn't have, we could live all on one floor. And so everything was fine. And so, of course, there was the loss of the house that I'd been in for 33 years, but I assumed I could sort of move my life over here. And we got the old house ready and put it on the market 3 hours before they announced lockdown here. And so that was a big shock. And I was supposed to be on a trip when they were going to finish redoing the new house, and everything. I was going to come back to everything all nice and tidy. And of course, people can't come and work because of the COVID. So there's just all of this sense of being suspended. So my story isn't this horrible, terrible suspension as some of yours are, but I think that's kind of the feeling we all have. I've heard people say that, oh, those of us in the global community are so used to doing this that it's no big deal for us. Would you agree? I wish I could see your faces, but one of the things I think that is almost a problem for us is we think it shouldn't be such a big deal. I think, why am I feeling so sad? I know about this. I understand transition. I know what's going on. But knowing in my brain and feeling are two different things. And so today I want to look at what we've learned sort of in our traditional way. And so we'll be revisiting some things that maybe some of you have kind of been aware of. And then I want to see how we translate some of what we've learned into today's world. And I want to hear from you certainly on what you're experiencing. Before I start the next slide, just to say that what Yvonne was talking about, my first journaling, what turned into my first book, happened when I was age 39. I was born and raised in Nigeria. I came back to the U.S. to live when I was 13. And like so many other TCKs now, third culture kids, people who've grown up in other places than their passport country, parents who are in a career like your kids are. When I came back, I assumed that America would be, my home, my sense of home, and of course I did the reentry. And so later we went to Liberia, and at age 39, I had this wonderful life, but I couldn't figure out why there was this place that seemed to be sad when all the lights were out. There was this sense I'd had of sadness. So I started to journal, and it was in that I recognized that the very goodness of my life sometimes hid the losses of my life, and that I hadn't known how to live in the paradox of both the good and the losses. And so I did want to say one thing. Ruth, you see, made up the term third culture kid. I meant to say that. But Dave Pollock developed the profile, and I think I've worked with him on that. But one of the big things we discovered in the 80s was the issue of hidden loss. So let's go to the next slide, please. And the types of losses that I had experienced were not the obvious ones. Nobody had died. I was never abused. I didn't have alcoholic parents. They weren't divorced. All the things that you could think of as the big traumas were not necessarily in my life. But when I was 39 and I was doing my journaling, I allowed myself to go back and to write as the person in the time that something happened. And when I came to writing about leaving Nigeria at age 13, I kind of avoided it. I'd been writing before, and then I thought, oh, this is stupid and all that. And then I realized, well, I want to look at some other things, so I'll just write about it quickly. But the minute I started to write about the night that I got on the airplane and left Nigeria, I realized that was the day my world had died. I never knew that before. I never knew it as a loss to that extent because, of course, I'm a U.S. American. I'm supposed to be going back to the States. I'd always known that. And so, I hadn't realized the extent of the loss. But in our lives, when we take those airplane rides, in one closing of the door, everything I had known, everything I had been, in a way was gone, but nobody had died, and I wasn't dead, and we didn't have any process. So that was something I never knew. And with that, of course, there's a loss of a lifestyle. Now, this we all have experienced, and that's why we'll take it to COVID in a minute. But this is kind of what we've learned in our journey as globally mobile people, that what we are and who we are maybe in one place can be profoundly different in the next. When I was in Nigeria, I got to ride my bike, I went to market, I bargained. When I came back to the States, I didn't really know how life went very well because the things and the way that I had lived and the sports I had played, were very different. And so when I made that switch, it wasn't just that I lost my relationships with people, but the very way of living changed. And I think all of you know that, because when we change countries, that basically always happens. And of course, we also lost our relationships. And one of the things in this normal life of global mobility is that our moves are cyclical. And so we lose. When I left Nigeria, I lost my friends. I'd see my grandma, and every leave, of course, then I'd leave my grandma and I'd go back to my friends who may or may not be there. So that's part of what we are, quote unquote, used to, and finding ways. And we can say, well, I read some article about TCKs and how they're so used to transition, it doesn't bother them. COVID's not a big deal. And I thought, well, it's really not so good to get that used to relationship challenge, because one of the things I found out as the adult was that I had learned how to cut people off, and that hadn't been helpful in my life ultimately. So anyway, that's part of our process. And of course, we lose our status and identity. People knew who I was when I was in Nigeria as a child, and then of course they didn't later when I was back in the States. And it can go vice versa. People here don't know my international life. I live in Indianapolis now, and I'm fine. But there's parts of our lives that other people don't know. That's kind of normal for us. Then when we talk about loss of possessions, you know, we talk about our possessions hold the things that are our memories. And someone I met recently was doing the archaeology of a global life, and she wanted to know, what are the possessions people who are globally mobile take to mark their lives? And of course, in all the moves, often we can't take all our possessions, and what we try and teach people when they're going to move children is make sure you ask your children what it is that's important to them so they can take it, you know, not just the picky blanket, but maybe the rock collection that you think is not so important, but for them it is. And so those are normal things. And then we have also, I think, the loss of the dream. For me as a child, the dream of, you know, what Chicago would be like when I went back. And there are so many dreams. I was remembering one lost dream that, for those of you in Britain, I'll say I grew up in Nigeria when it was a colonial power. So I always had the dream I was going to marry Prince Charles because, you know, he was in all the things that we read. And then the Queen was going to come and have a visit for us. And I just had this dream that he was going to come with her and fall out of the car, and then I would rescue him, and, you know, we'd be happily ever after. So that was a dream I lost when he never came. But some of our dreams are small or silly like that for children, or for all of us. But we do lose big dreams. We lose the dream of the promotion that we thought we were going to have, or the country we'd hoped to go to. Those are dreams that are kind of part of our normal. So let's go on to the next slide and look at how some of these, well, wait a minute. Let's think about what happened then with COVID. What was the world? All right, go back, Yvonne. Go back one slide. Sorry. So this is what I wanted to talk about. When we translate this into COVID, no, go back. I'm sorry. Go backwards to the hidden losses. One more. To hidden losses. Previous. Yeah, okay. Sorry. When we think about this now in terms of COVID, for how many of you, you can either signal, or I guess you can't signal, but put your mic on maybe, and if you just lost your world, how did you lose it? How fast did you lose it? What just happened? Does anybody want to say very quickly what happened? I'm sure that many of you just lost your world that you didn't, your world that was, and it wasn't expected, because the big thing with COVID is we've lost all these things at once. We didn't have time to get ready for them. Does anybody want to pop in about or write on your chat room? Is there a world you just lost? I just lost the world of my house and my neighborhood. What about you? What's the question?
I can say, this is Padmini again. I can say that I was expecting my parents to be here on April 15th. And then there was a whole chain of programs planned around that. My daughter was to go to business school in April, end of April. All that's now postponed. And most importantly, I thought I was going to be an empty nester, but now everyone is back home. So, yeah, those were the dreams lost.
Yes, and let's go ahead and just say all of these dreams connect actually to all of these things. So let's just talk about what some of our lost dreams were. She lost the dream of her lifestyle that was going to be empty nest. She lost the dream of the world that was, which was the plans and the hopes she had and all kinds of things. So that's great. Thank you. All right, what about the others that you've got? Just chime in with, what are some of the dreams that you just lost that can relate to any of these in today's world? Somebody else?
I think most of the comments are...
Sorry?
Chat box saying missing parents visits. A lot of parent visits are being canceled.
Mm-hmm.
Birthday parties, the children looking forward to birthday parties and looking forward to traveling.
Mm-hmm.
I can say for myself, it's just not being able to get to see the kids. So, and to me, it's two losses. One, the more immediate, and the second one is slowly dawning on me how the world will never be the same. And
right.
That's a loss. So one's a slow one and one's a fast one.
Right. Can you go back to the other slide there?
May add something.
Yeah.
For me, the bigger loss is not about travel, about parents, about this, that. Is that this is sorry. Mm-hmm. There is something bigger than me who is in control on mm-hmm. my schedule and on my decisions, and mm-hmm. this is very difficult for me. I mean. Mm-hmm. What do you mean? Because I was born in France and all my life I was in free democracies, etc. So I never had this experience to need to obey in a way to something bigger than me.
Yeah, go back to the hidden. Yeah, there we go. Well, see, that's what Kat just talked about. It's the loss of a lifestyle. Haven't we all just lost our lifestyle? The way that we're used to being able to go out, to be free, to go to restaurants, to do this. And in that loss of lifestyle is what she also just said, the loss of control. I can't make my own decisions. That's a big deal. That's a big deal for us, that we have lost a lifestyle. And maybe we don't put it in those words, but that's what we're used to doing. We're used to freedom. We're used to going around. And suddenly, in basically 1 or 2 days when they made these declarations, we lost that. Thank you. What else? Well, and also what Yvonne was saying, the loss of the sense of what the world will be. The dream is we've always just assumed life would go on. The way that we've known it, it goes on ahead. And now that's a big loss too. What is going to be ahead, we don't know. Anybody else?
Having a loss of gaining employment, travel, loss of sense of self. Mm-hmm. This is what's coming into the chat box, graduation.
And that sense of self goes in that status and identity. Because who are we if we don't do the things we've been used to doing? And I think another thing for me is the sense that I know better, I should feel better. And so that's like, a sense of identity that I think I'm braver than this, or I'm more spiritual than this, or I'm more noble than this, or something. But also I think it really comes into who are we if we can't do the things we've been doing. I've had 8 conferences canceled on me now. And that's fine at one level. I know I'm not what I do at this level, but I love what I do. And so it's much more fun to go do things than it is to sit and unpack boxes for me. So, what is that loss of sense of self, I think. Would anybody like to talk more about how that feels to you, what your sense of self is and how it was changed with COVID so far? Or what that means?
I guess I'll speak to that.
Okay.
I wrote the sense of self, but
okay.
Me, like you said, I haven't been able to do the things that I really love to do, like biking and, hiking with my family and with my dog, and having people come and visit me, and for me the employment piece is huge. I haven't been able to get a job because everything is kind of on pause for me.
Mm-hmm.
All the exams that I have to do to recertify my license are all canceled, and so it's just this loss of who I am and what I mean and what I contribute to my family
Mm-hmm.
has really been difficult to deal with. So now I just feel kind of like a life, just cleaning all the time and cooking and making lunch for my husband as he sits in his office, and I'm not me.
Right. And that also goes to loss of lifestyle, because one of the things I found that since we moved, my husband's office is right next to mine, and we were supposed to be on this trip, so he was on vacation, and now, he's only working part-time because they're trying to keep his office, less with people. And just having somebody where I can hear what he's saying when he's on the phone, and he can hear what I'm saying. So I came downstairs for this so I wouldn't bother him. But it's like a different lifestyle, just even living with everybody in the same house, right? All the time. So that's another thing. Okay, how about some more from the chat? You want to read some more to me?
Yeah, we have a big one from Laurent about leaving, let me say it here. He says, leaving Cameroon. We left Cameroon where we live and will no longer see Cameroon because we are moving to Pakistan.
Right.
We leave without saying goodbye to friends and colleagues, and we could not anticipate. And we're a bit lost. We have no control over the future for the kids, and it's very hard because they're not understanding why every day they have new information. So that's a big one, Laurent. I feel for you.
That's huge. It makes me, seriously, it makes me feel teary, because I think of your kids. They didn't have any idea. And when we talk about lost possessions, it's not just the things, it's the place. It's life as they knew it. It's all of these things. And to have no way to prepare. We do these. You would have had to move anyway, but you would have had preparation time. So thank you for sharing that. That's enormous. And we'll talk about what we can do about all this in a few more slides, because it's really, really important that you do something with this and for your kids so that it becomes, we can learn. I think there are things we can learn from COVID, but that is huge. I saw others. Daniela, did you write one about loss of control? I don't see the slide. I just sort of saw it going by.
Yeah. I had mentioned loss of control and inability to plan, right, due to the uncertainty.
Right.
So summer plans, I also had, travel plans for summer, and everything just falls apart, and you have no idea what's going to happen next.
So I think the bottom line for all of us, and please keep writing anything you want to, and we can stop anytime to take another one. The sense I'm having is when I said at the beginning, we're all in this together. We are all in this together. This isn't about, half of us, it's no big deal. Everybody has a different loss. Everybody has a different dream they lost, whether it was a dream of vacation or meeting somebody, or particularly, you were talking about your kids, and my grandson is, senior in high school. So he didn't get his last semester of playing soccer. He didn't get all the senior things. We've already cancel school for the rest of the time here. My granddaughter was in Spain going to university, and one weekend she was in Switzerland, going to the UN, having this wonderful life she's been just absolutely loving. And on Thursday she was back in Indiana, and so and half her possessions are still over there. So for everybody. Okay, next slide. I think we'll go there. So what is it? When we have losses, we have to do some mourning, and that's not a comfortable feeling. Like I don't want to process this. I don't want to think about it. I want it all to go away. But if we don't do our mourning, and this is what I found out at 39. I never knew how to lament. I never knew how to take care of my losses when they happened. And so there are several obstacles, and what happens if we don't take care of them, then we live with them just forever and ever and ever. And so even at 39, I had to go back and look at some of these things. And so my plea for myself and for you is let's process what's going on as it goes on so we can move on. Otherwise, this just stays with us forever. And so one of the things, of course, is the lack of awareness. That's what we've been trying to bring up in the last slide, is the awareness that this is actually a big deal. It's not just a little bump in our screens. We thought that maybe it would go away in a few weeks. Well, now we know it's not going to. So what did we lose when that happened? And that is, for me, important. And so another obstacle is lack of permission. Too often we say to ourselves and to each other things like, oh, well, think about all the other people. When I went to boarding school at 6 and missed my mom and my dad, people would say, well, think of all the kids who don't have a mommy or daddy. And so they were right. I had a mommy and daddy, still they weren't there. So then I feel like, okay, what's the matter with me? I shouldn't feel the way I do. And we have all these I shouldn'ts. And I think it's easy to talk to kids about how lucky they've been, or, you know, all these things, just think about. And we take away permission to say, you know what, this is hard. This is just plain hard. And so if we don't have permission or we feel shame for how we're feeling, that's another thing. We just feel shame. We should know better. We should know better, but we do know better, but that's not the issue. The brain and our feelings are not the same place. And so we often take away permission for ourselves and for other people. Then a lot of times we don't have time. Mourning takes some time. When a person dies, and really for all of us, our world has died as we knew it, and we don't know what it's going to be. There's a time it takes to process. You just don't skip over it one night. And I think one of the confusing things, maybe for all of us, at least for me, is that one day I can feel pretty okay. And then the next day I feel pretty not okay. And I just think, you know, is this going to end and how's it going to be? We have to learn to live with paradox. Our whole life really is about paradox, that we have all these great joys and blessings and see the whole world. But with that comes the separation. But right in this particular time, we can give ourselves permission to have paradox, because it takes time. It's not just an overnight thing. And as with, you know, a death, when you have the funeral and the process, that's why we do funerals. And of course, that's a huge, huge, huge loss for so many people, is they can't do the funeral. They can't even process physical death. And in the way that we usually do with time. But another big thing that I think was true in my life, and for so many of us, is the lack of comfort. And I've come to see that encouragement and comfort are two different things. And encouragement is important in time. But a lot of times, the encouragement winds up being kind of a lack of permission. And the first thing for all of us is, especially with those in our family, especially with your kids, sit down and let them know it's hard. Comfort is when we come alongside somebody and we hold them. The kid's scared at night because the thunderstorms and comes to your bed. Well, you comfort them. You don't just say, well, go back to bed. You know, the thunder's not going to get you. You comfort them. And so I think it's helpful for kids. I think it's helpful for each other. What you're doing today is helpful to me. When you say, I get it, I get it, I get it. It's hard. And so I think that this lack of comfort is one of the things we do, even to our children, because we don't want to acknowledge our own losses. And so it's hard to sit with them. So go to the next slide, please. I think the ways, if we think of these as being the obstacles, then if we do the opposite, and we do the naming, one of the things I would suggest is sit down with a journal and just write what you lost. Or the way for me, when my tears come, I think all my life I was very good at stopping my tears. I've come to learn that my tears are my best ally many times. And as I sit in these sobs and I think, what is it I'm missing? Why am I crying? Because sometimes I don't even know why I'm crying. It's not like somebody died. That's part of the problem right now. It's so nebulous. What are we grieving for? So 2 weeks ago, I got in the car, and okay, so I'll probably cry if I say this, but I'll try not to. But crying is not a sin. I did learn that one time, because I think I always grew up thinking I shouldn't cry because I know better. But anyway, I said, why am I so sad? And all of a sudden it came, I want to go home. And I thought, is it just my house? And I thought, no, home is more than just my house. It's my way of life. And my way of life and my home have always been filled with people. And I call it Hotel Van Reken, and I've had lots of guest rooms. I love cooking for people, and I love people, and people from all over the world come through because we're in the crossroads of America, and that's my life. And my grandkids, I've got 13 grandkids. They come. They all know where their places are. And I always promise the kids, I said, well, I know we're going to miss the house, but we're going to take our life because we can make our life in a new place. And all of a sudden I thought, I haven't put my oven on one time since I moved because nobody's here to cook for. No guests are here. I'm here myself and my husband. And all of a sudden I thought, okay, that's fair. So I can cry, I can grieve for my life. Now we can decide what we're going to do after that. But the first thing I have to do is to get some language and some naming. And so that was helpful to me. I thought, all right, that's legitimate, and that partly gives me permission. But I think it's really important to name it, and as best you can. And sometimes people do that through music or through art or something else. But, don't run from what you're feeling, because if we have language, we can do something with it. And then don't compare to others. I can think about all my friends in Africa. We lived in Kenya for a year. They've got all the locusts there now. Think, what in the world are they doing with all the locusts? They don't have food. They've got COVID. And here I am I've got two houses. Some people don't have any. And so I could sit there and, think, well, I shouldn't be sorry for me. And it isn't about being sorry. It's just acknowledging. It's sad. But that doesn't mean I can't acknowledge it's sad for them, too. It is sad for them. It's very sad. And so we can enter into sadness together in a way, in a corporate way. And then I think also giving ourselves the time, like I said before, that it isn't just a matter of one night. It's going to take time. It's a process. And so what are the things that we can do in the meantime, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I think don't punish ourselves for how we're feeling. Don't blame yourself. This is very real. And then to acknowledge, as we said also, the comfort. And so then what are we going to do? And I want to hear your strategies, but for one of them, when I finished my naming and I finished my permission giving and I finished my comfort, then I have to go to what am I going to do? Go ahead, next slide.
Ruth, I was just going to say, is it possible that we have questions and answers before we look at the strategies?
That's a good question. That's a good
point. To look at the obstacles and the losses, the previous slide, naming them, because I think, for instance, that point you made about the lack of comfort. I think comfort before encouragement, which you're talking about, is so important. And I see in the chat box that apart from Laurent, somebody else, and I was wondering what your advice would be for all those people who are leaving their locations where they have been like for 5 years, like Laurent and his family, of not being able to say goodbye, where deep connections have been made. Right. What? How would you respond to that?
Well, I think that that's what probably part of the next slide. I would have some thoughts about that. But I think the first thing is, Laurent, to comfort your children. And it's fine to have a big family cry. It's sad. This is a very real loss. And just as much as, like I said before, the death of my world, you can grieve, you can cry together for that. And I think that one of the things we'll talk about is how do you do retrospective leaving? Because I think that when if you knew you were leaving, you were going to leave, but you would have had the next few months to say goodbye. And that's what was robbed. That's where you lost the things that you should have had and could have had. And so part of the strategies for leaving, for dealing with it in a minute, is how do you do that? How do you do that with your kids? And there are some very concrete ways I think we can. So does anybody have anything else that's a question here? Or I have to get used to this new style. I'm used to my audience in front of me where I see everybody and I ask you the questions and then does anybody have any?
The next slide, unless somebody has some question related to what Ruth has just talked about. The mourning, allowing ourselves, giving ourselves permission, the obstacles. Before we go forward to strategies, does anybody, if you want to answer a question, please unmute, or if you prefer, put it in the chat box. If not, we can move to the next slide.
I have the feeling that we are all dying for strategies and solutions. So let's move.
Yes, let's move. Okay. So one of the things we'll get that slide up. Thank you. Next one. One more. There we go. All right, this is our last slide, so we can just sit on this and talk away. I saw something recently, and they said that I thought was very helpful. They were talking about the grief cycle that Kubler-Ross did and how we go through denial. We've all been going through a grief cycle. If you didn't know that before, you have been, where there's denial. Well, this is just going to be, a short time. And then there's anger at some point because we tend to get that out on each other, but also, why is this happening? And then they talk about bargaining, where you're trying to make some deal so we can fix it, and then we go into sadness and acceptance. But this article that came out that I saw said they've added a new stage, which is after acceptance, how do you find meaning? And probably all of us, what are the things after all of this that are still important for us? What do we have left when so much has been taken away? And I think this is where maybe part of COVID gives us a place to evaluate what is really important in my life. Do I still have these things? Do I still have purpose? Do I still have, and what is that purpose? And I think that's a very good exercise, one of those life exercises for all of us that is important. What is it that gives my life meaning, and how can I find that even when I've lost so much? And maybe just think about while we're talking, and would like to hear from some of you, but certainly I realize for me more meaning than going on my trips is having my grandkids here, if I was going to make a choice, and that there's still meaning and there's still this kind of stuff. But does anybody want to just, well, you can either pop in or you can stop me if you see the chat room. But what are the things that gives your life's meaning? And go back, please. Then the thing is, are there ways that you can recreate the lost dream? So for you, Lauren, sorry, drawn the right name, for those who left Cameroon, what were the dreams your kids lost? What were the dreams you lost? And are there some ways to recreate it? Okay, so what would you say some of the dreams that the kids lost or you lost? I would say, saying goodbye properly, having a farewell party, but are there some others you'd like to throw in here for what they lost there? Unmute.
Did you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes. What did my kids lost? That's yes. The problem is that they didn't realize what's happened when we came back to France, because it was just before COVID-19
right.
and the lockdown in France, and we were blocked in France. So in 1 week they have the news that we are blocked in France.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot come back to Cameroon. Mm-hmm. The week after, we say the school is closed to the end of the year, and the answer that they cannot say goodbye to friends, could say bye. They cannot say bye to goodbye for the house, for everything. So they have no control. They have no control on the future, and I think this is the most important. And after that, we don't know when we are leaving for Pakistan because we have no information about that. We don't know when the lockdown will change in France and what's happened in Asia. So that's just, I think the problem for the kids is control. They have no control. Absolutely. And we have to be happy, to be very positive. And for me, that's we are living in my parents' house, so we are in very comfortable place and quiet place. But for kids, I think this is they have to speak a lot, and we have to ask a question to understand what's happened for them.
Right, and I think this is where comfort comes in. This is where adults think, oh, I have to be positive. You can be positive ultimately, but you cannot fix grief with positivity because you're using your brain to try and fix an emotion. So the best thing you can do is hold your kids and say, it really is sad. And I feel sad. I thought I was going to go back and see, so-and-so and such and such. So because control is such a problem, what are a few things that you can help them see we can have some control? What are some plans we could make? Okay, we can't go back in person. We can't have the farewell party we wanted to have. Could we have a farewell party? Okay, we're all tired of Zoom, but in another way, could we have a farewell party on Zoom? Could we send each other little mementos, pictures? What are some places? Could we make a scrapbook? How can we connect with those people in a meaningful way? And it isn't the same exactly, but it is a recreation as best you can. The kids have to have some sense that they can do something. And so do you. So do I. And so when I say look for ways to recreate the dream for our, grandson who's got the graduation, how their school is trying to, they finally wound up with a sign in their yard that somebody put. I guess they're going around to all the seniors that said, Park Tudor Strong, senior, and there's a line through it. But it's still, somebody's acknowledging this is a senior from Park Tudor. And so sometimes if we can find new ways, you see all the pictures. I saw somebody saying happy birthday to their grandma from, having signs in the parking lot yesterday, and she's on a balcony. When we can take some kind of control again, some kind of decision making, when we have no control, we are complete victims. That's how it feels, because a victim doesn't have control. I mean, if somebody comes and robs you at gunpoint, you're a victim because you didn't have control. When we lose a sense of control, we start to feel like somebody's victim, and that's part of where the anger comes in, because we don't even know who to blame. So, and then in the families, we kind of blame each other. But if you could think about, okay, what did we lose? We lost saying goodbye. Probably you lost a lot of possessions that were dear to you. And I don't know how the move goes. Do they go back and get your things and move them to Pakistan? Or, but if there are things that the kids really find that they really miss, something that they had a stamp collection, or whatever it is, is there a way to say, we're going to be able to retrieve that? I don't know. Or is there a way to say, in the year when this is over, let's plan that we go back and take a vacation, even if you have to pay yourself, that we go back. They call that a journey of clarification, where you go back and touch the world that you had, and you realize maybe it's not the same, but we can go say goodbye. We can take our pictures. We can do things. So I think the first thing is to let them know you understand and you care, and let them talk about it, and not try and say, don't feel like that. But then, okay, what can we do? What can we do proactive? What's something we could do? Can we send a package to somebody? I don't know. I know Cameroon may or may not get packages. But if you were still going to leave, we would tell you to build a raft. and you probably heard about that from all your wonderful people here at the Family Center, but that you reconcile, you try to fix your relationships because you're often pushing people away. But then there's an affirmation where you thank people. How about having your kids write notes to the people they want to thank, the people they would have gone in person and said, thank you for being my teacher. Thank you for being my friend. We can still do that. We can still do that. I'm sorry. I told you I'm in this with all of you. I think about the kids. It kills me because I know what it is to lose your world. It's hard. And so you can do the affirmation part. You can say, what are the things we want to take with us, but just affirming and even writing to each other or saying to each other, what are the things we loved about Cameron? And then farewell. Okay, so you didn't get to say farewell. But the affirmation is, saying why it was important. And that's really important. And people think if we do that, then it's going to make them feel worse because then they're going to think, oh, they missed it. But it makes us feel better. That's why we go to eulogies at funerals. Then we say farewell. And we would tell you to say farewell to people, places, pets, and possessions. Okay, fine. So you're going to have to say farewell to people differently this time. And like I said, maybe you could have a party, at least some way that you say farewell. And that you also even can make plans. Well, can we keep in touch some kind of way? To people, to possessions, okay, like I said, are there ways you can get some of the things that were really important to them? And to places. Place is so important to us. And because places also, they hold our memories. They're where we did the things. So maybe this is where we make a scrapbook of the pictures we have. Maybe get a friend over there to send a picture. Put pictures what you can. Maybe ask all their friends, could you send us a picture of yourself on the make a scrapbook. These were my classmates. And you know what I'm saying? You can do concrete things to help the kids process the loss. And then pets. I don't know if you didn't have, if you had pets, that's a big thing too. Pictures of that too. But I think that having some way to concretize this for them, because it's so amorphous, it's so, like for all of us, it's out there. And we can do that for ourselves. Each of you have a different story. But what are the concrete things where we can recreate? We can't do it the same way. But what's another way that we could do the same kind of idea? And then the T of the raft is think destination. Now, that's another problem because you don't know when it's going to be and you don't know where it's going to be and you know how. But if you think at least it's supposed to be Pakistan, can we start to learn about that, and at least can we learn about the country, can we think? So we can do the raft retrospectively. I think that's a big thing because we have to stop and think. When I sat down and thought what was one of the things we lost, my son-in-law likes to decorate, and so he likes to do the big reveal, put the things up, and then you're supposed to come back. And so that was a loss. I thought, well, when we have it ready and everybody's out of COVID, my husband and I could leave for a couple of days. And I wrote him, I said, you can still have your big reveal. It will just be a little different. We'll just go to a hotel or we'll do something. And so what are the things we can reclaim of what we lost or do something differently? Does that at all help? You think some of those things, Lauren, that you could do, would that be helpful?
We have Laurent and I think Barbara who are in the same situation. So,
okay.
What's your response? Does it make sense what Ruth said for you?
Yes, Ruth. Thank you very much for all your tips. Yeah, that's very important for kids to do something. And they're still working online with the American schools. They have Zoom every day. So they didn't use the link with classmates. Mm-hmm. But I think this is not right now. This is at the end of the school year, maybe. And so, yes, we have to organize virtual meeting and virtual goodbye. Yes, I think this is very important. And thank you very much for sharing your experience. But
take a book.
I think I work on it before because this is our life in the World Bank. we are leaving every 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I said I was the president of the PTO in Yaoundé, and I said to the director that we need to be very pay attention for the kids because they have different culture, different language. They are leaving every 3 years. They are losing 30% of students every year. So yes, this is our life. But COVID is here right now, and we have no control. So that's very fast, and that just
it's like it collapsed all of it into one. And so we're doing all of the transitions at the same time. And usually you could do them in order. We can't do them in order, and we didn't have control. But that's where we can go back and take some control, or how can you do it different if the kids are still online, you know. And like I say, if you can make a book so the kids could carry it even in the airplane or something. So it's not that they wouldn't have left. You're right about that, but you would have left differently. And so that's the thing for each of us. What are the things that, you know, in the losses we've had that we could do differently? And hopefully you can even go back, although of course their friends won't be there in the same way. But I think that where we can take control, even in the little tiny things, you know, we should do that. My son the sun radiates in here, and it was kind of ruining my furniture. And I kept thinking, well, when COVID's over, I'm going to get somebody to put, you know, some sunscreen in the window. And I thought, well, maybe I could call the guy and find out, is he still doing it? If, you know, and he said, yes, I'll stay away and we'll do social distancing. I thought, just one little thing that I could do, you know, to make a move towards my next life. So does anybody else want to talk about recreating the lost dream at all? Because we have some other things, too, that I'd like to suggest. But I want to bless your kids and just say, all the kids out there, all your families, because this is hard. This is really hard. And they will remember this their whole lives. But what you do for them in the process will make all the difference, that they will come out stronger. And they won't come out stronger just saying, oh, forget about it. They will come out stronger because you teach them. How do we deal with loss? How do we deal with this? When we have it, how do we process it? Because life has losses for all of us. And part of the lesson here that you're teaching your kids is, how can we do it well? How can we do this well? And how you're teaching yourself for all your moves, too. So thank you so much for sharing.
What's coming up, too, I think, from what you said, Ruth, is that the same ideas you mentioned could be done for the proms and for the graduations. The farewell parties can become prom parties and graduation parties, and those same ideas can happen. We have an interesting comment, Jen. I was just wondering what your response would be in the chat. And it says, I wouldn't want to try to recreate or recapture time lost. I'd like to just embrace the present and hold on to future plans.
Well, okay, that's fair. And it's not, I think what it is what's the principle of what we've lost? We lost saying goodbye. And so if that still hasn't happened, if you move to the future without processing where you are, that's where people wind up in 20 years with depression and other things that, you know, they never processed it. So it's not about going back, but it's saying those friendships were valuable. They're very valuable. And if we're still working in time, in the sense of my grandson's still a senior, Lauren's kids are still in that school. So how do we can't say goodbye the old way, but we can say goodbye the new way. So I don't think it's trying to stay in the past. It's how do we process what we are losing in a new way so that we can still do the life things, the processing that we need to do to be healthy, to do the process of loss. And for some people, you know, my mother was one who much more just cut things and went, you know, and she'd say, well, you know, your dad wouldn't want me to grieve after he died, so I'll do this and this and stay busy. We each have our way of doing it, but I think it is, particularly when we're thinking about children and loss, how do they process to get from where they've been to where they are? If you think about the transition cycle starts where we're all involved, and then we go through our leaving phase, which is when we say goodbye. And then we go into transit, which is when we've left one place and we're not in the other place yet. We're not fully invested. And that's always a time of chaos and confusion in some ways, because we've left what we know, we're not fully where we're going to be. And so, and then we go through that and we move on to being settled again. Right now, the world is in this transit phase where we've left and we don't know where we're going. And so in that phase, yes, we're thinking ahead and all that. But one of my father's words to me, he was a TCK also, he said, unpack your bag and plant your trees no matter where you are. And what I'm finding is, even then, this I think goes along with what that comment was, is I realize it's not just unpacking my bags when this is over. How am I living now in the middle of COVID? How can I unpack my bag and plant my trees right now? That's the bottom one of the strategies. And so I think for the person who wrote that, would that be go along with your thoughts of how do I live now? And for me, that meant go down and literally start unpacking, because you're sad that everybody can't come to your house, but if you don't unpack your bags, those boxes, you know, your job right now is to settle and stay in that moment, stay in that reality, and plant my trees. Okay, this is where I am. If I live through the rest of my life the way it is, could I find meaning? Could I still find purpose in this? And does that at all, or somebody, whoever made that comment, would you like to comment again? I'd love to hear your comment or your thoughts.
Please unmute yourself.
Because we all have different ways, so.
Oh, hi there. Sorry, that took me a few seconds. So yes, I'm one of the people who don't have young children, but I do have extended family and young adults in my life. But I just thought, unlike it's a small minority who are having a hard time, let's say, staying in and just trying to ride out the time period. I think I'm understanding why we're doing it and trying to just get through it and get to the other side, and then try to keep, I guess this is to keep myself hopeful that you still have things to do in the future and you still have people to eventually see face to face again and interact with. And so that's what I'm looking forward to, as opposed to worrying about the fact that I will miss my birthday and I will miss a trip. And I try not to think of the negative, but think of the positive to come. If that makes sense.
Yes, it is. And that certainly is. I grew up with a mom like that, and that was why I think I realized that, there's a wonderful gift in that. But that was where then I thought, okay, I should just think about all those things. But I'm more of a process person, and I also say we also have to go with who we are as people. And so I guess for you, I would think, well, is there a way to celebrate your birthday a different way? That it isn't that you don't have to be sad about it, but like, okay, it's my birthday. So what could I do that would be fun? Or could your friends think, what could we do to make it fun for her so it would still be special in this time? But I also think we're in different places. Some of us are just going through it individually. I know I'll make it. I'm sure there's life ahead and all that, but I also learned that, that in the process, I do understand more about myself and different things like that. And I didn't know I liked to have so much control until I don't have any. But so I think that's one way people can do it, and that's fine. I think we do need that sense of hope. And, I think when we work with our kids and we've done the raft and said goodbye, that's part of the thinking destination. There will be life ahead, and that's when we go to funerals. We do the process, but then, of course, we move on to the next part. So we do it in our own way, and that's okay. But I think the point is to understand that this is also to understand it's different for different people. I have some friends that say, oh, it's terrific. I'm getting all my projects done and I love being home with my wife and it's great. Got all this time. And I have to not be mad at them because of like, well, wait, because that's legitimate. That's what it is for them.
If you don't mind my saying, I was just going to say to you regarding the birthday, I absolutely have no problems just skipping this year. I know it was an important one, but I was prepared to just accept that this one won't happen and then just look forward to another one. So I know that sounds weird, but I'm really not stressing about it.
No, and that's we are all different like that. But I think for those who are in the morning and feeling, for the kids who don't have their graduations, for the kids who are losing so much of the dream that they always had, when I'm a senior, this will happen, that'll happen. It's an irretrievable loss. It can't be the way it was going to be. But I think part of dealing with that then is, when somebody's feeling that, what can I do? And even when you can't do everything, I say, what's the one thing you can do? For me, when I'm at least acknowledging. Now, some people, honestly, good for you, honestly, if you just say, I can wait it out. I think my husband's more that way, and he probably wishes I was more that way, but I'm not, and I have to do it the way that works for me, and you are welcome to, not celebrate your birthday. That's fine. There's no prescription, but there are strategies, and for me, another one is, when I can't do everything, what's the one thing I can do? And that, in my life in general, has been what somebody told me in 1980 when I said, I felt like I'm supposed to write, but I don't know how to write, and I don't know this. And she said, well, when you can't, you may never write a book, but if you can't write a book, you're still writing letters. Do the thing you can do, even though you don't know about the bigger thing you can't do. And I think that's what I'm finding in this time, that I don't know how to do the big things. I don't know what's ahead. I don't know how it's all going to work out. But what are some of the small steps I can take so that when this is done, that step is taken, and I can still keep moving instead of feeling stuck. Now, I think it seems like you don't feel particularly stuck. You're willing to wait, and I think, like I said, that's commendable. But for some of us who keep going like, well, what do I need to do, or how do I, what's going on? If I can stop my brain and say, what's one thing I can do? I'm trying to get my house done. Okay, what can I do? I can fix one thing today, even though I can't put the lights in and I can't do a lot of the electrical work or whatever needs to happen. So other people who want to chime in and say how you're working with it or strategies you have?
I was just going to add that, for me, I was the person who spoke about my loss of sense of self and that loss of, the ability to find employment right now because of X, Y, and Z. For me, one of my strategies has really been to go back to my values and really go back to what is it that I enjoy doing, and what are those projects, like you said, that I haven't really gotten to. So for me, a big thing has been, for example, starting to teach some yoga online, right? So that feels like it feels like employment. It feels like, okay, I'm still contributing something. I've always wanted to do more painting, and I have never really had the time. So finally, I'm pulling out my paints, and I'm, ordering some new stuff online to really pump up that creative endeavor that is so important to my values, right? Being creative is important to me and to my sense of self.
So you're really in the two circles. What gives your life meaning? I would like to contribute, and so I find a way to contribute. And then when you can't do everything, what's the thing you can do? You can't make somebody hire you. You can't fix that, but you can give meaning in yoga, and you can allow yourself to do a project that you actually enjoy. and who knows where even your painting will take you. I mean, I don't know, but the point is you're doing what you can do to find meaning and purpose and use and some positive outcome in this time when you don't have control over everything. Those are things that you can make decisions about and take some control. And, none of us, we've all learned, none of us are in absolute control. But in these little spaces, it feels good to do something that, we can think about and decide to do. Even deciding you don't care about your birthday is a decision. It's a good one. It's okay. That's not worth that. For me, that's not the biggest meaning, even though it's a nice birthday. My life will still have meaning if I don't celebrate the birthday. So we each process in our other ways. What are some of the other strategies some of you are using? Or finding? So
anybody want to?
Well, I'll just tell you one little thing. I realized with my neighbor, I thought, well, that one of the things I lost with moving was being able to go to the fence and talk to my neighbor. And so the other day we thought, well, we could social distance if we just meet because, she's in and I'm in. And so we sat nicely far apart in the yard. And I think we're obeying all the rules here. And so we did that. And I just wrote my daughter because our grandson is having a birthday on Saturday. And I said, what do you think about social distancing on your porch or your yard? And we at least celebrate together with his birthday, which won't put us over the limit of people. But, we can stay far apart. And it's just trying to say what are some things we can do when we can't do everything. Maybe we can't have a big meal and all that celebration, but could we come out and at least sing happy birthday and be safe and all that? So that is for me just a small thing, but it makes me have a sense of, my whole life is not totally swallowed up by COVID. What about somebody else?
We have in the chat box here, cooking, cleaning, and having a routine house, but I'm not rigid at all and will go with the flow.
So tell me about that, because I've heard a lot of people say it really helps us to have a schedule. I've tried to have a schedule and I'm hopeless at it. So tell me, because my daughter has to have a schedule. Her way with her children, she has 3 kids at home now. She said, we have to have a schedule, Mom, or I'll go nuts. So, they've put a schedule in and they've gotten quite used to it now. They're doing online schooling too, but that is for her been an important part of her structure. What about some of you?
Maybe you want to go ahead and then enlarge on your routines.
I find that I wake up obviously earlier than the others, the kids, and so then that's when I go down and I do my cooking. And when I cook, I feel good, because I feel like I'm creating something, and there's that satisfaction of feeding other people. And then I have some work related to WBFN for some time. Then there's lunch, there's walking the dogs, there's certain tasks that I must do, and I really look forward to them, that, this is something I have to do. I cannot not do it. And that helps me survive.
Mm-hmm.
That people depend on me for, completing certain tasks.
That's great. That's important. What about somebody else?
Something that is important for me is because we work quite a lot Monday to Friday, and making sure that on Saturday, Sunday, there's another rhythm, another schedule. So we keep weekends. Other way, there's no reference. I mean, I stay in bed and I read my book on the morning, even if I want to turn on my computer, but making it different on Saturday, Sunday.
That's a really great strategy, Kat, because I I have to try that one because my sense is all the days are mushing into one, and I don't know what's a weekend, what's not a weekend, and so that's a good one for me to think about because it feels like I can't keep track of time or dates because my external factors are gone that would give me rhythm and so forth. So thank you for that tip. How about somebody? That's great. Thank you. Daniela, did you want to say something? I saw your name come up.
Yeah, I was typing. I was saying that with everybody being at home, it's been easier to connect with people, sort of looking at the silver lining, right? Mm-hmm. And I had a chance to reconnect with some old friends from my previous expat life across the world. I mean, we've had, happy hours across 5 different time zones. And it's been, aside from being fun, it's been really comforting to know that we're all sort of going through the same experiences and we can share our experiences together, as old friends. Mm-hmm. And it's been very good.
That is a huge gift. I've heard from people I haven't heard from in 15 years, I think. Everybody thinks we're so old we're going to die, I guess. But, it has been nice. It reminds me of my lifespan, that my pieces of my life are connected, and that has been a gift. And, of course, the various Zoom things. I saw there were some other things that came up, some other hints. Want to share them? Whoever wrote them, they don't stay on my screen, so I don't.
Okay, I can read them out to you. We have here somebody saying routine definitely helps with the kids. Another comment: I feel a weekly framework with few commitments each day, with flexible space for creative choices. And then we had Daniela who mentioned about connecting across the world with people from previous expat lives. And from Barbara, who's saying keeping family traditions, the good old TCK, keeping family traditions going, like pizza night on Fridays. I recognize that I need to be part of the COVID solution, and that playing a role gives myself meaning. I've started to create a list on Sunday night or Monday mornings of things I want to achieve that week. So I think enough to say that people are doing very different things, and as you said earlier, depending on temperament, we all do slightly different things. Like we had a tree fall on our house, and we're very thankful that the damage was minimal. But now we've got more sun on the patio, so I've ordered a yellow table. Not quite a yellow submarine, but a yellow table, so that we can have coffee outside or tea when the weather gets better, and we'll have a table to put our teacups or coffee mugs or whatever. So it's coming up 11:30, and I'm mindful that homeschooling for lots of people may be calling. If
I
you
have one other thought from what somebody said about COVID and meaning. Yeah. This is a brand new thought, so thank you for that. I always learn. I thought that's probably another great strategy, both with your kids and for yourself. That how do I become part of the global solution when we think about meaning? And even kids, you see these little things where they've sent their notebooks, they sent their notes to the nurses or to the police or something, and all the people that are sewing masks and stuff. So maybe another thing that would be helpful in this time is the sense of meaning that I am part of this happening that's going on, but then how do I become part of a solution? Because for all of us, whatever we can do in life to be part of a solution gives us a beautiful sense of purpose and hope, and also solidarity with other people. I do think one of the positives coming out of this is that the sense of connection to people from so many countries and so many other ways of life in this, we share. And so whatever we can do to do that, or helping your kids with the project, I think would be something they'll remember as, when they're older. Well, when COVID came, this is what we did. All right. Sorry, back to you, Yvonne.
No. I was going to ask the group, we're coming to 11:30. And so, if you have to go, please do so. If you have any more questions, I think Ruth will be more than happy to respond and continue the conversation. So I'll leave it to you now. If we don't get questions in the next minute or so in the chat box, I will wrap up. Yes, I hear somebody. Go ahead.
Yeah, Yvonne, could you stop sharing your screen so we can see the face of people?
Yes, there you go. There you go.
Okay, will do.
I miss seeing people.
Yes. Thank you for reminding us that that's possible. That was supposed to happen. And I'm not very good at technology, so yeah, that was the plan. What I would say, for those who want to leave, that's fine. But what I'm enjoying very much is hearing you also share your own stories with each other. I think that's very powerful. And because you know your specific situations and you know the World Bank situation, which is a lot of mobility. And I don't know where you're all at. I know we've had a couple of families that don't know where we're going to go next and got repatriated more quickly than they thought. So that may be another thing that's pretty unique to your environment or to your group. So I'd love to just share with each other too. I come, like I said, as a fellow pilgrim here, not just the expert. And you're the expert on the World Bank situations too. So I'd love to hear more and share with each other your tips.
I don't know if Gadi will be comfortable with that, but I guess she is in a very tough situation with the husband in one country, her in another. They were also planning to move. So if you feel comfortable, Gadi, I guess your story will be fascinating for Ruth.
Sure. Hi, Ruth. Good to see you again.
Yeah. How are you? Yeah. Nice to see you too. Can't hear.
You got muted. Gadir, you got muted.
Unmute.
All unmuted or am I okay now? Okay. So yeah, good to see you again, Ruth. And yes, we were supposed to finish the academic year and relocate to Sudan. My husband already relocated there in January, and I prefer to stay until the kids finish the academic year because I have the older ones in high school. I usually don't like this middle of year transfer. So yeah, in early March, I packed all the house, put it in the container, and shipped it to Sudan, so that by the time we go in early June, everything is set there, the house is ready and everything. So just a week after I shipped, the COVID-19 came, and then, we were just stuck at home with just barely mattresses in the floor, and this has been going on since mid of March. But yeah, we are surviving. Actually, we're finding new things to do, especially I have the little ones in elementary school, grade 5 and 3. So they have been experimenting with new things, mastering new skills like the waveboard up in the roof. We have been blessed with a roof, which we just, vent in the evening. And yeah, it's not easy. We are in Delhi, India. It's not easy. The lockdown is getting harder. They make it harder every week. So yeah, it's not easy. It's a difficult period, but I think we connected more, me and the kids. We try to support each other as much as we can. My kids are fine. They are doing distance education as everybody else. So they are busy half of the day. The older ones, they're more busy. And the other ones, they're not very much actually disturbed with this staying at home. They're fine with it because I think they're seeing their friends in all these meetings and everything on the phone. I think I am the most affected because I'm just alone, literally alone, now for more than 2 months. And it's getting harder. But yes, we just I taught myself that I just have to survive this period, trying to do new things, trying to exercise more every day. But yeah, every day I'm just telling myself one day is down, so it will be over soon. And that comforts me in a way, yeah.
Yeah, no, it is comforting. I mean, you're not saying it's not easy. I mean, you're not saying, oh, it's no big deal. It is a big deal, and that's comforting. I mean, and you can understand why it's not easy. You know, it's a big deal to have all that happen. Do you have any idea when you'll go yet or not?
When the airports open, both here and in Sudan, which is expected by early June, hopefully, late May, hopefully.
Wow.
This is the first time in my life that I can't plan, you know, but I'm just drifting day by day, yeah. So we're taking it one day at a time.
Sometimes when I'm in situations like this, I've learned in airports when I wind up in crazy situations, I always think, well, a month from now, I won't be here. I don't know how I'm going to get out. I don't know how the planes are going to work out, you know. And now I'm thinking, well, in a year, we won't all be here. That's kind of how I also think, you know, we'll know how it turned out in time. But right now, we don't.
Actually, it's amazing.
Thank you for sharing.
When I think of all our conversations today, the themes, I think one of the overarching ones is that loss of control that we're all feeling, some more than others, I think. But I guess that's one of the common things that binds us all together, the whole world, not only the grief, but the fact that we're all grieving the same losses in an odd sort of way. They're the same losses. So, Carol May, you wanted to annotate, and we couldn't get that second thing up because the bandwidth wouldn't allow screen sharing and annotation. Would you like to ask Ruth your question now? You have to unmute. She may be having technical difficulties. Does anybody else have a question or comment that you want to make? Otherwise.
Yes, hi. This is Jacqueline. First of all, I want to say, Ruth, I'm super excited to be here. I have the Third Culture Kid book, and that's like my Bible. And I have had it for like over 20 years, and it's just written all over with little comments and stuff. So it has been a lifesaver. Talking about routines. I have discovered that my kids are already in college. One already left the house. Another one had to come back. So it has been a readjustment. And I've been trying to keep up the routines, but also got to remember now that I have a young adult that I have to give space. And even though she's my child, and we're in this very particular situation, I have to make sure that I give her space. Otherwise, we could go into some confrontation. So I'm wondering if you have any strategies. I mean, so far I think I'm doing okay, but if you have any suggestions, I would love to hear.
I think I'm smiling because my daughter has two kids that sort of hide in the basement, the one from Spain and the other, she said. I think that what you're saying first off is right. You have to give them some space. They're not your little kids anymore. And so I think Stephanie is working hard on not feeling rejected when they need their space. And she said, I recognize that they're used to having independence. And, we've given them independence because, they can. And so letting them have, in a way, their own process within the house. At the same time, she said, it does feel like we're doing more together as a family. Ultimately, we're eating more meals together. And she said, I'm treasuring that. But I think you've really nailed it when you say that you recognize they've come back as young adults, not your little kids. And you have to respect them. And in a way, that can be positive because at least so my kids are like 49, 47, 45 now, so we've been a long time. But watching that process change from being children to your adult relationship, it's really what you're doing right now. You're exercising that part of the journey, that transition, which is for all of us a transition, trusting them to be themselves, but it's a different transition than when they're back. It's one thing if you kind of launch them. So I would just commend you. And I think, whatever you can do to have quote unquote meaningful conversations is fun, but you can't force that. I think the other thing that I hear from people is you have to grab the moments, as I'm sure you know, when they come out of your bed and sit and want to talk. And it doesn't matter what else is going on right then, Stop your phone, stop all that, and listen. And I have my neighbor says that her daughter came back from New York, and she said those are the treasure times for me, where I just realized right now she's willing to talk. I can't make her.
Ruth, you are on mute. I'm sorry.
Ooh, what happened to her? Whoops. What happened? She dropped.
Paul, can you try to help her, Paul, please?
No, just the mute button got pressed on her end.
Kat, who needs help?
Ruth. Ruth has been turned on mute. Can you unmute her? As the host.
Ruth, you need to unmute yourself. That's all you need to do.
Hitting the button there.
Okay, try now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul.
My screen went dark, maybe because it was, hadn't been used. But then when I was clicking the button, it wasn't unmuting. Sorry about that. Hi, everybody again. So you were saying, or somebody was saying, you were talking about having adult kids back or something. So that's its own challenge, but I keep hearing Governor Cuomo talk about how the blessing is he's got all three of his daughters back, but it sounds like it's a challenge also, because he said they keep wanting him to release the restrictions for New York. So if you go to Governor Cuomo's talks every day, he talks a lot about having his kids back home. So
we've got a question here, Ruth, in the chat. It says in the earlier chat, we talked a lot about being kind to each other and ourselves in accepting that we are grieving and might not be as organized and disciplined about routines as we might. Could you comment on this, please?
Well, you have to know that my gift and my weakness is organization. So I'm one who's much more prone to go with the moment if somebody calls or if the kids need talk, and my sister and my daughter are ones who need the organization. So I think there has to be some balance. But I do think that we can be kind to ourselves when we think, I think for me, I can feel, I didn't get enough done today. That's something I put on myself. But I think that doing what we need to do to get through, whether it's painting, whether it's that, sometimes taking naps, although I think naps can become, if you're only sleeping the whole day, probably you're winding up needing to do something. But I think being kind to yourself is essentially what we're talking about giving permission and giving time. And if you're not getting a million things done, it's okay, because most of us are very productive oriented. Even though I'm not organized, I say there's another part of me that knows what I have to do, and I get it done, but just in a different fashion than maybe my husband would get something done, because he gets up in the morning and he makes this list even now for what he's going to do for the day. And that's fine, because that's what he needs to do. So I don't know. Does somebody else want to comment on that? To me, understanding that, that's part of the wading through it is doing how the day turns out and trying to set. I'm learning though something. I'm turning off my ringer on the phone sometimes, because I found out that that's driving me nuts, because it's like I'm always with it. I had a landline before. Now I've only got the phone and this feeling that I have to respond instantly. And I thought, wait a minute, I used to have an answering machine. I'd leave the house, people didn't die because I didn't come back. So for me, that's part of giving myself some permission to organize. Like if I want to come down and do boxes, say, you know what, if I'm going to do boxes, I need 2 hours so that when I start sorting the first pile, I don't have to I don't get interrupted and then forget what I did. And so the only way I can do that, because I'm compulsive to answer a ding, is to turn off my ding. So I don't know if that's, anybody else experience that? Then I feel terrible if
I think it's important to give yourself permission for imperfection, right?
Oh, that's a good one.
Things are not going to be as they used to or as perfect as they used to be. One thing that I wanted to comment, in the beginning you said that you had heard that, TCKs or expats feel like this is easy, right? Because we're used to transitions. And I wouldn't say that it's easy, but that because of our experiences, we have learned coping mechanisms that certainly help make this more bearable than for others who might not have had, the same experiences. We have learned tools, that enable us to cope with this in a different way. So not necessarily easier, but certainly I think we are better equipped to handle it and go through it.
Well, I think that's right. I think the thing that's different, as I'm seeing for some families, is that it all happened at once. It collapsed. And so the coping mechanisms we've had, at one level we can use it, but a lot of what we do, I think the biggest thing we do is block. I can block. That's what I did for years. When I say goodbye, finish, that's it. And that's what I found out. It was a coping mechanism, but, it didn't work long term because it had some other impact on me. So I think for our group, we do have the coping mechanisms in many ways, especially if we've learned to do them, our goodbyes well. If we've already learned how we process, all these moves. And so that's very helpful and can be very important. But I think, as I said, one of the the goofy things is that all these TCKs are feeling trapped. Like they can't, that's like, wait, my whole life is movement and I can't move. That's one of my coping mechanisms is that I travel and that I go. So, but you're right, Danielle. I think we shouldn't, I agree that we've learned, the biggest thing maybe we've learned is that life goes on again. And there is another side after the transition. It may not be the same because when we change countries, it's not the same. We learn how to live in the new. And I think that there's every hope in the world we'll do that. But because the losses and it's all so complicated right now because it's so layered that taking some time and, like you said, give yourself permission. It's not going to be perfect. We will get through it, but not to be afraid to process it. I think sometimes people are afraid to process loss because they think they'll get stuck in it. And actually, after I had my big crying spell, that was the morning afterwards. I thought, okay, now I'm ready to move towards the future. What can I do? Let me make some decisions, because I had to sort of first acknowledge what I'd lost. And then the next morning it was like, okay, now it can be time to go, which is reentry in a way. I mean, we know about reentry too. But thanks.
Daniela, I mean, just to a point on the analogy, I think it's true. We have skills that we've done more transitions than perhaps the average person. But I think philosophically, I don't know, it's very, very different in a way. We can't sort of make it totally analogous in the sense that quid pro quo, one this, well, I did that when we relocated, therefore I have the skill. I don't think it's as tidy as that, because I think one of the things that I'm seeing, because there was that article about the kid, the TCK being able just to drive away, somebody wrote in the blog. When I read that, I thought to myself, well, one of the huge problems that TCKs do have, and Ruth will probably be able to talk more about that, or she has talked in fact a lot today, is that we don't resolve our grief very well. So yes, there are strengths in that one is able to use our expatriate experience, but the question is, have we done our expatriate experience well? Because if it's the same blockout skills that I don't deal with that, I don't, So I think it's useful, but it's also you have to see
something
the
very,
strength and the
very
weakness of the
useful.
model. What?
If I may jump into it, there is something that was very, very useful for me when you presented that in one of our previous chats, Yvonne, and I guess this is what Daniela is referring to, which is, well, sometimes we have a country, a posting that we really don't like. We try, but we don't like. Okay, it's fine. We know there is an end. There is an end. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. And we know that for COVID, there is an end. We don't know when, we don't know how, but there is an end. So I hope I'm not in denial. I hope I'm not refusing to mourn. But, well, if I get really, really anxious, etc., it's a bad posting, but I need to deal. I need to enjoy the moment. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel. This posting will end one day.
No, I think that's part of thinking destination. When you think of the raft, that part of the destination is there's another side to it. I get through this, there is that other side, and so I think that's another. I hadn't put that onto the T part of the raft, but.
You're muted again, Ruth.
You got muted
No,
again.
no, Daniela is muted, I think.
No,
Ruth
okay.
is muted.
Okay, Ruth. Okay.
My screen is going down. I don't know why. I've got it all plugged in. I think I should move my cursor on it or something. And then
from time to time,
yeah. No, I think that's a great long-term thing for all of us too. Even when somebody dies, you've got to get through it, but life will go on, and that's kind of where reentry is, and so no, I think that's a good reminder, and so that's the both and, that's the paradox, that we can, like you said, you've already acknowledged, it's hard for me that I don't have control. Okay, but one of the things you're doing to have control, among the other thing, is I can control my weekends. I'm going to still enjoy my weekends, and so you're making decisions that you can make. But I think you're right. The point is that there is a day coming, so we don't want to be, by the end of this, so destroyed by sadness or by something that we kind of give up. Because what happens for some kids, I'm talking about, I work with more of the kids, and then I see the long-term impact 20, 30 years down the thing, like it was for me, that when I didn't know how to take care of it, I lived a lot of years with a lot of sadness that I didn't understand. And I think that that's what my hope would be. If we can process this, then especially with the kids, they don't have this this mourning that goes on for years, or where they just kind of give up. Because I think one of the things that I see with some TCKs, when their lives have been so upended all the time, and they don't have choice inside of it, because parents get their movement and whatever, they stop making choices they could make. And some of them live almost a whole life of victimhood, that, well, this happened to me, and this happened to me, and something else happened to me, and they don't make choices. If we can, this is really an opportunity for how we process well, and how we go through stressful times, well, I think, and teaching the kids, and part of that is, you will see another day's coming. I know you don't see it today, and I know it stinks. I know it's awful. And so we're going to do what we can do now so that we can take care of where we are today. And one day, we'll see you back. But in the meantime, let's say goodbye to your friends well. Let's make a book. Let's do whatever we can do now so that when that day comes, they don't have so much unfinished business to, okay, these are young adults, not school-age children. I'm sorry, I didn't see what that was about before.
This is a very interesting comment we have in the chat box, Ruth. Something I have learned, I can grieve the loss of short and mid-term dreams for my children, Yet I realized that some of that grieving is for my dreams for them. And I think that's the thing, is my dreams for them. And so this is a new opportunity for knowing what their dreams are and starting to remove or stand down some of the dreams I may have imposed or encouraged them to have. These are for young adults.
You need to put that in blazing things for all of us moms, because I think that's profound. I told you I always learn from people. That's profound, because we do have our dreams for our children, even without COVID. But COVID stopped all their dreams too. I mean, it didn't stop all of them, but we don't know how their dreams are going to work out. But I think they're beyond the COVID side. What you said is profound. That part of letting children become adults is releasing our dreams for what they're supposed to be or who they're going to be. And I had someone who said, when my kids left, I put them in the boat and I cut the rope and put them in the sea of God's will, because I figured, that they just have to go live their own lives. And I thought, I haven't cut the rope a lot of times. She said, I keep trying to take them back. But that's really, really good that sometimes we lose the dreams for our kids. And another mom, she said, I had to forgive my kids. I had to forgive my son for wanting to be a fireman when I wanted him to be, a college professor, something like that. She said, I had a dream, and that wasn't the dream he wanted, and to learn. So COVID aside, that's just a really good principle for all of us, that those are dreams, too, that we lose at times for who we want our kids to be or our grandkids or whatever, and to let them dream their own dreams. Thank you. Whoever wrote that, I didn't see.
That was Mary. It is. We're coming up to the hour. So I think to 12 noon, we've been on for an hour and a half or so, more, an hour and three quarters. My math is bad. So is there a last question? If not, we'll wrap up and thank Ruth. Thank you, Mary, for that. It's true. Maybe our next webinar can be dream adjustment. Dream adjustment for moms.
No, that was one of the circles I think I didn't really get to, that we have to retool our dreams. We have to rethink our dreams. So this would be a good time to say that. Thank you. That really was a good ending, that it's not our own dreams, but our dreams for other people. And I realize that's where I feel the biggest loss of control, because my daughter has 3 kids, and I was supposed to do something during spring vacation to help her. So my rescuing and my helping others, is a dream that I can't do. She's going to have to do this on her own, and she's doing fine. But, that's very good. Dreams for others.
I think that's so funny that she's doing fine. And sometimes I think our as mothers, we're glad, but then in a way we're amazed at how can they be doing fine without our help? I mean, how can this be? You're actually doing okay without me.
3 of my daughters are actually enjoying their families even more without me there to be so encouraging. So anyway, it's great. That was a great comment.
Ruth, thank you so much. And I think what we would really like to thank you for, I think the community will agree with me, more than anything else, is long ago for giving us that language, the language to process something that would otherwise have been an unknown country. And I think that your ongoing work, so thank you too, because it deepens how much the community, the third culture community, can know and understand as you continue to do more work and learn new things. So I think above all, that is our greatest appreciation. And the key points, I think, for wrap up from Ruth, what I heard was give yourself permission. And I think comfort before encouragement, because we are so quick to get to the encouragement because we ourselves need the comfort. So we move on before we need to. Comfort before encouragement. And I think today, Ruth, what you said really struck with me is that you cannot fix grief with positivity.
I know. It's too bad. because it would be so much easier.
And I think those two go together. They're like, almost like twins, comfort before encouragement, and you cannot fix grief without positivity.
But we do need positivity in the end. That's the paradox. It's the hope is that we think we'll get stuck if we acknowledge it. But then if we don't have paradox, you can only either be stuck in the grief or ignore and just be positive. If we can live with paradox, we do both. We can affirm all the good, even while saying this part is hard. And that, to me, is the secret of living much more fully than I ever knew I could before, because I can do both and that's a really big world inside. And it's a big world outside, too, when we can do that. Can I thank your community for, you guys have been welcoming to me from the beginning in days that people didn't even believe about this topic. As I said, the third culture kid term somebody else made, but I do think that your community was among the first. There was a lot of negativity about the topic in the early years. People thought, oh, this is, you're just making this up. How could kids of so many different backgrounds all share something? And so I remember the first time I came to World Bank and met some of you, and you all came to FIGT and all that, and you believed. And I thank you for that. And even today, you've taught me more, and I appreciate that. It's a community, and my life is rich because of what I've been given to do and the people I've met, and I thank you, all of you.
It's a community, and you are definitely our queen. Today, even more than before. So, Ruth, thank you so much. Padmini, maybe you want to do the final words? Thank you, Ruth. Mwah.
Thank you, Kat.
Sure, Kat. Many thanks, Ruth. I cannot thank you enough. And really, like I said, I wish I had known this language. I had known about all these things while I was struggling through all my various moves. But the good thing is I know now.
That's right.
And thanks to WBFN, we can make your knowledge available to our community. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. And to all those of our members who have tuned in today, thank you for joining in. When we see so many people on this forum, it makes us feel encouraged. It makes us feel like a great tight-knit community. So please keep tuning in. And of course, we will have more relevant topics coming up in the coming days. So look out for those.
That's great.
Thank you. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Ruth. Great to see you.
Ruth.
Take care.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Ruth.
Thank you.